Ford has been making performance versions of its various small cars for about 50 years now. Back in the 60s, there was the RS Coupe, and then the Escort RS 1600 in the 70s, the RS Turbo in the 80s, the RS Cosworth in the 90s, and the Focus RS in the noughties. These were all fast cars in small packages at reasonable prices, but all these cars had one fundamental flaw. None of them were available here in the U.S. Ford was categorically ignoring its home market, seemingly thinking that we Americans only want pony cars and not hot hatches. But finally, that's changing. This is the new Focus RS. It is the hottest hatch Ford has ever produced, and it's available for purchase here in the U.S. Or at least they will be next year. This year's allocation, you see, is already sold out. But if you can find one, you'll be getting a 350 horsepower, 5-door hatchback with all-wheel drive for $36,000. The Subaru STI, meanwhile, this car's biggest competitor, has 305 horsepower from that same old 2.5-liter flat 4 they've been sticking to the front of those things for over a decade and costs $35,000. So about 50 more horsepower for basically the same price, plus the practicality of a hatch. It's not all good news for the Focus. This car does weigh more, but the difference is only about 50 pounds, and that's really not that much when you're talking about a pair of 3,400-pound porkers. WRX owners, the Focus RS is either your worst nightmare or your next car. And you can trust me when I say that, because I own an STI. In fact, I've just bought my second STI. Clearly, I have a problem, but on paper at least, the Focus RS is superior. The 2.3-liter engine makes more power and way more torque at a lower RPM. The all-wheel drive system uses a more comprehensive set of differentials to get the power to the ground. It's all controlled exclusively via a 6-speed manual transmission. Yes, with a clutch and everything. The 0 to 60 sprint is completed in 4.7 seconds, and the car will go on up to a top speed of 165 miles an hour, both figures better than the Subaru. 350 horsepower, that's a lot to ask from a 2.3-liter, and as you might expect, there is a fair bit of turbo lag on evidence here, as seen on the boost gauge that's handily mounted right in your line of sight. Get on the throttle, and you'll have to wait a little bit before all the torque comes, but there is a lot of torque to be found. And as you go through the different drive modes, toggled by a button here right next to the shifter, the throttle response does get better, which helps, and the suspension also firms up as you go. Now, this car does have a very firm ride, as you would expect, and those 19-inch wheels and tires don't leave a lot of room for compliance, but even so, even on the sportier modes, this car is pretty livable. And the interior is pretty nice too. The materials are decent. Yes, this is still just a Ford Focus, but we get some extra trim, some nice blue stitching, and these seats are a big step up over the base Focus seats as well. However, I'm not totally in love with them. You get nice bolsters up top, but I feel like I'm sitting about 3 feet off the floor, and there's not a lot of support down here. I would like some better seats, but overall, it's a nice interior, and it's definitely a step above the Subaru, which is lacking. We have Sync 3 in the dashboard, which is Ford's latest infotainment system, and overall it's very good. It's much more quick and responsive than the outgoing system. It'll even connect to your smartphone and run some apps like Spotify through that, so you can get easy control of your streaming music. There is sadly no Android Auto in here yet, but Ford has said that that support is coming to Sync 3, so with any luck, maybe we'll get a software update that'll add it here. In terms of other technology, it's a bit of a mixed bag. We've got cruise control, of course, but no adaptive cruise control. There's no lane keep assist or anything like that, so we would like to see a little bit more technology on that front. But a lot of the technology in the car has been put in the drivetrain. The all-wheel drive system here is one of the most advanced on any road car. It'll get you through the snow and ice, of course, but it'll also optimize things on the track, which is where we're headed next. That's where you really need to go if you want to get the most out of a car like this. And it helps to have a professional driver to do that too. Thankfully, we have a track. And we have a professional too. Some say his name is Ben Collins, and he's raced everything from sports cars to Indy cars, everywhere from Adelaide to Le Mans. All we know is he's most famous for turning many a hot lap inside the white helmet as the Stig on Top Gear. Today he'll be playing the part of our own tame racing driver, helping me get the most out of the Focus RS. Now Ben, you've driven basically all the world's greatest cars. Where does the RS fit in the grand spectrum of everything that's out there?
The RS is really unique because I don't think there's ever been a hot hatch with so much technology packed into it. It's a car for all seasons in a way, because the way the all-wheel drive works, you get maximum stability and grip and performance when you want to be on a track environment. You can take all that technology and go on the road, be safe in the snow and the ice, because you've got the support of the four-wheel drive systems. But unusually, Ford have allowed us to effectively turn it on its head with drift mode, which really sends all the power to the back. It lets the car free up a little bit, makes it looser, which means you can fling it sideways and burn smoke and rubber and make fun noises on tracks.
And I've spent a fair bit of time in the car already, and it's impressive how the electronics are there. They help the car be better, but they don't really feel like they're getting in your way at any time.
That's it. And you've got the options to reduce that interference, if you like, what I'll call it, interference. So it's there to support you for everyday driving. You're just getting to work, wet leaves on the road, whatever it is. The car will try and support your efforts to try and control that situation. But you can turn all that off and really go for it on the track and get the most out of the performance.
Now, I've been lucky to drive a lot of great cars on a lot of tracks, but I've never had the chance to go drifting. Do you think you could maybe show me the ropes a little bit?
I can show you the ropes. This is the right machine. Now there's drifting and then there's four-wheel drive drifting. So the RS can really send nearly all of its power to the rear wheels, but there's always a little bit of front-wheel drive playing into that as well. So if you've done a tiny bit of this before, or you've had a few skids, it's going to be different in this because there's lots of grip you've got to overcome. You're fairly aggressive with the steering, and once you've got it sliding, full power, and then it'll smoke the tyres up.
Want to show me the ropes?
I'll show you the ropes.
Great.
Let's do it.
Before it was my turn, Ben showed me the proper way around the track. Well, the sideways way around the track, anyway.
You get on the power, and the tail just squares up the corner. Lots of grip, yes? I can see you struggling in your seat slightly. There's no gentle build-up with this car.
That's all right.
Well, there is, but I'm not giving it to you.
Lots of smoke that time.
That's it.
Getting a nice essence of tire and brake here. It smells pretty good.
Yeah. Fire and brimstone.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. So now, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. Any last words of advice before I get behind the wheel?
Drive it like you stole it.
Okay. Well, I don't own it, so that helps.
That's it. Bring the speed down a little, and bring the circle tighter for when you start. That's great. Yes. You're in. Yeah. More power. More power. Keep it going. Yes.
Yeah.
Bring the circle tighter. Yes. Yes. Woohoo! You got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is easy.
Yeah, keep the gas on and make it look like you meant it. And bring it to a rest. And yeah, you nailed it.
All right.
That was pretty amazing.
Well, thank you.
Genuinely. That's great. Got to be happy with that.
I feel very proud to hear that from you. Thanks. Smells good. I love the smell of tar smoke in the morning. Thank you very much. That was great.
You smashed it.
Thank you, thank you.
You don't need me anymore.
All right, time to hit the track. Out here on the track, driving the car as you're meant to drive the car, aggressively, but not drifting just yet. It feels really good. I gotta say, there's plenty of grip in that little bit of turbo lag that we felt on the street that wasn't so pleasant. Out here, it's not a problem because we're basically foot flat to the floor all the time. The gearbox is close enough that you can keep in that power band, and even though the shifter feels a little bit vague, ultimately everything works together really nicely here. There's a ton of grip. You can feel those differentials hunting for the grip out there, and man, I'm having a really good time. My really only complaint is, again, that I'm seated a little bit too high in this thing. I feel like I'm up on stilts a little bit, so even though the car is flat and planted here in track mode, I kind of feel like I'm wandering back and forth, but man, it feels good. It even sounds good. Once you put it in track mode, the exhaust starts sparking at you.
Suffice to say, drifting on the track where the speeds are higher and the walls closer is a fair bit more intimidating than doing so on the skid pad. It took me a few laps to get my confidence up.
All right, so I've toggled the car into drift mode, and I can definitely feel there's a lot more lean. The car feels a lot more loose too as we're going around the corners. Now it's time to put up or shut up. Let's see if we can get a little drift going out here on the track. There we go. It's going to be expensive to own this car because you're going to want to budget for a lot of tires, 19 inches each. They're not going to come cheap. It's strange, and you can feel this on a skid pad too. The rear does break away, but you really need to get hard on the power in drift mode to make that happen. Meanwhile, the front is also breaking away, so it's almost like you're understeering while you're oversteering, which is a bit of an unusual situation for a car to be in, to be frank. But as far as I'm concerned, if you got smoke coming off the rear tire. All right, so obviously I have a little bit more practice ahead of me before I begin my professional drifting career, but frankly, I can't think of a better car to practice in than this guy. At the limit, it's very easy to manage, and it's a lot of fun out there on the track. But on the road, it's pretty great too. Yeah, the ride quality is a little bit harsh, but it's certainly livable. There's a lot of practicality with that hatchback. There's a decent amount of tech inside, and I think it looks pretty damn good, especially in this blue. As a Subaru owner, it pains me to say this, if you're thinking of buying an STI, think again. This is the one to get.